Seeker, it's Brooke. In lieu of this week's Tarot Outlook, I am uploading the audio file of an impromptu lecture, an hour-long conversational information session about the tarot, how the cards work, how the atmosphere works, and how there are more entities involved in the chain of that information handoff than just me and the person who's sitting with me in the reading. So if you would like to know how this works and how there is really one and only one thing about the tarot that we don't know how it works, tune in and enjoy.
The shuffling of the cards. I shuffle at least 7 times and cut 3 into 3 piles from left to right, and then restack left to right so that the last becomes first 3 times before I pull, usually 5 cards at a time. I usually start with 2 rows. That'll be 10 cards. And then I may or may not pull cards off the top of the remaining deck, the remaining unseen deck, depending on whether or not we feel we have answered the questions or confirmed the informations that the sitter was looking for. If that is not the case and we feel there's more information to be had, and I will tell you this is why it is so important for reader and sitter to ask questions of each other and really have their own conversation about the cards, because as a channel, as a reader, we have no authority to apply it to their life, to their situation, to them at all. We can only bring the information and help them look for the connections in the card between, people and situations. But ultimately, it is necessary for the sitter to be fully invested there in connecting this information, because it is theirs, and so they have to examine. They have to think about what's happened in order to apply this information in the most beneficial manner possible. I mean, that's all there is to it. So the reputation that less than honorable practitioners have given the arts of fortune telling it's really unfortunate, because here's how it works, and it's no mystery. The only mystery is where the information comes from. What is the influence that is delivering the answers we're looking for, and the information that we're seeking through whatever format we're using. That's really the only unanswerable question about any of this. So that entity, whether we call it God or an angel or a spirit guide or the Akashic records or the ether, the universe, the all, the one. I mean, it really doesn't matter, as long as you are identifying it in such a way that makes you comfortable, so that you can be part, more comfortably a part of having this access. Whatever concept you want to ascribe to that entity, that force, that database, make yourself comfortable with it, because it is a part of this conversation, this chain of information delivery that you need to be comfortable with in order to be a part of this process yourself. It is necessary for both of you to be here. So just be all right and know that the force, energy, tree of life, book of life, energy that is delivering this information through the system of language that we have prescribed it to use, that we would understand, is benevolent or neutral. I've been reading tarot for 30 years, and I have never encountered anything that wasn't akin to a dearly departed, or just a benevolent energy. I have found no restrictions to the questions that I have been able to ask, although as above, so below, I think it is absolutely imperative that we maintain our principles of privacy and compassion and interpersonalities, the dignity, that can be lost in dealing with different personalities. We have to treat it with respect, just like any other, we'll say, privileged access that we are given. You don't stomp on those opportunities, because I know that if I don't conduct myself in an honest, ethical way, and we'll talk about that honesty in a very specific sort of side conversation about how all of this works. If I don't conduct myself in a way that would make me comfortable with sitting across from myself, I need the client to be a part of this information chain. I can't do it without their permission. And if they're not comfortable enough with me to lean in, they are automatically not reviewing any potential places in order to set this information, to apply it, to put it into motion. So the session is automatically a failure. And I am in those instances, even though they are increasingly rare as the years go by. In that instance, I say, you know what? I don't think I'm the reader for you. And I give them their money back. Why should I hang on to any part of that energy between us, or between, that part of spirit that just, I was not able to deliver, for them. The money is symbology of that energy connection. I don't want it bad enough in order to keep it. So I will give them their money back, and I will recommend someone else. I do have a list of friends that are also colleagues who may have a better approach, a different approach than the way that I connect, or the way that I bring it through. So fine. No harm, no foul. I don't get upset about that. I think it's a blessing, because if there's that tension, that is a blockage. That is an impediment that's probably there for a reason, because it may be a no-go. So honor that. Nothing is so important. And when you honor that and conduct the readings with that sort of integrity, of at least offering neutrality, again, no harm, no foul, that just makes your connection more trustable. And the clients that need to hear it, or need to have it brought through in the way that you, as a unique individual and with your own unique interpretation of the cards, they're almost guaranteed to find you, because as above, so below, like attracts like between the realms. We can't get past that. Okay. Opposites attract really only in the physical. And And I'm sorry, really not in the relationship realm. Nature doesn't waste energy. So that energy needs to be focused on things that are wanted more of. Okay. Anyway, unless it's in the, the realm of a destructive cycle at the moment, which is also necessary. Bless your hearts. Anyhow. So the more honorable you are, the more trusted your channel becomes. Okay. And the better it gets. Because as you work with the cards and as you have these many conversations, most of which you really won't remember. You won't remember the sitter that inspired that idea or, gave you that additional outlook on that particular card or combination of cards. You won't remember them because you're not supposed to. You can't hang on to anybody's stuff. You're the channel, not the gatekeeper. All right, you gotta give it to them and let it go. It's theirs anyway. You can't fix it for them. You can't stop it on their behalf. It's all theirs. It's coming into their awareness, so it is officially their property. The one and only thing that you need to be focused on doing is being the clearest, most unbiased third-party channel that you can possibly be. And at the top of that list of hygiene is leaving that shit right where you found it, okay? In 3 weeks, I will have forgotten sitting with you, and that is by habit, and that is by practice. And that is the reason why I very rarely read for people close to me. I will give them to a friend, or I will read the pendulum for them, because the format is going to be a simple yes, no, neutral. I really can't. I can help phrase the questions, but I can't influence my own. I can't put my own interpretation on it in any way. So that's usually, the format that they get. But sorry, that was a really good point, but I lost my thread. We were talking about integrity. Where was I? Right. So the client needs to be part of the process. You have to trust that it's benevolent. And whatever mode you are using, because the spirit world, okay, or the ether, or wherever it is that this stuff is coming from, it has been my constant observation that it doesn't waste energy. And I hate to break it to you, but those of you skeptics, that's fine. I'm not shaming. I am not blaming. Our perspectives are all part of the balance, okay? However, spirit, just like the rest of the natural world and just like the rest of the universe, let's say pretty much everything outside of the human race, because we came to Earth to fuck things up, okay, and learn from it anyway. And even then, our energy isn't wasted. I mean, elementary, science, tells us that it's neither created nor destroyed. But in terms of efficiency, there's no waste of energy. All right. That's why water seeks its own level, easiest path. Depending on what sort of results, right? Because there is consciousness behind that. And everything is growth, pro-growth, and risk avoidant, right? Anyway, people who say that they want to know, but never have an experience, never get the slap in the face definitive proof that runs them out of questions, okay? They're saying they want to know, but they don't really want to know. Somewhere in the mechanisms that allow them to have the experiences that life gives them, there is an impediment to allowing that. Okay. That's like, it's really all it boils down to. It's an allowing. And in order to do that, you really have to set aside what you think you know about how this reality works. And that's fucking scary. Right? So energies, it's never wasted. All right. Spirit doesn't waste energy, and neither does whatever force is using the language that we're assigning this session to deliver those ideas and to spark those inspirations or realizations. So it doesn't matter what the language is, as long as it's meaningful to the reader, to the person who is the channel. Okay. You can, oh my gosh, there's so many over the course of humans communicating with the divine. You can use runes, you can use the tarot cards, tea leaves. Some people can scry with a crystal ball or in a bowl of water. It really doesn't matter, as long as the information is coming through and is being accurately interpreted. Okay. Now, for most people who need something a little more solid than just a flat out channel speaking, okay, we would call that a psychic or a medium, okay, who speaks messages through their own mouths from spirit. For sitters who prefer something a little more tangible, that's where these physical modalities come in, of that introduce randomness, like that give a guarantee that the physical forces, meaning myself, the reader, can be used to generate enough randomness to give really the only physical demonstration of an act of faith, of our honesty and our dedication to being a non-influence for the runes that are coming up, or the pattern of the bones that are being thrown, or the tarot cards that are coming up, or the symbolism coming through the teacup. That, like I said, it really doesn't matter, as long as it is being interpreted correctly. So the one and only way to interpret these signs correctly is that the reader, no matter the modality, interprets it in their own way. So I've been reading for 30 years at this point. I got my first deck when I was 16. And of course, I was self-taught. I didn't have, there was no other magical individual in my life. So it was very much book learning for me, and just, I don't know, I sort of never followed a recipe. and that ultimately applied to my spellcraft as well. I was much more likely to make up something of my own from components that were going to work, for a spell of whatever intention I was working, and sort of just, go from there. Like, let's call it, a junk drawer witchery. I don't know. Anyway, I relied on 3 or 4 tarot books, and like very rarely read in the beginning for anyone else, like just my close friends too. I don't know. I don't think it was experimenting, because I really had a desire to be very good at it, more than proficient. It felt very meaningful to me, but in the end, I didn't get really, really good until I threw out my books. I took a very basic structure of the tarot, based on the suits and their interpretations. There might be a little bit of numerology thrown in, but I imposed as little structure as I could get away with, because that's how we see the patterns. Okay, that's how we attach the things. We have to be able to see those patterns, and the easiest way to do that is by grouping those interpretations together. So in their structure, but it just oh my God. I sort of scared myself there in the beginning, because the like once I had to put the self-doubt aside, because now the validation was coming through, and I was learning so much about, well, with my own life experiences throughout the years, but also that which my sitters were always sharing with me. Ultimately, it just leads to this pattern of growth for everyone involved. For me and everyone who sits with me. It by default, that's the way that it has to be. And like I said, I will forget the sitter, but that wisdom that came through, those ideas that got linked, that information stays with me as an experience now that I can turn outward to anyone and everyone who sits with me ever again. It really is it's really sort of a staggering snowball effect. And talk about, I don't know, what would we call it? Abundance and increase and expansion. So, all the more reason to lean in, But anyway, we come back to everybody's role. We just sort of talked about the tool, all right, the language that we are using to connect all three parties, okay? The other part of that party, so we've got the higher self, okay, the Akashic records, the ether, where this information is coming from, okay? And then we've got us in the physical, okay? I'm here as a channel interpreting the signals that are coming through, all right? The cards that are being turned, all right? The other part of this information chain is the subconscious. It is the subconscious. That is the other party who is using this language to bring forth, because that's where it comes through. Okay, the information that's coming through can't come as happenings in our physical reality. How fucking terrifying would that be? That information has to be relayed through the cards, and the gate of that, which can only be communicated with the things that we give it, the words, the language, the internalization of experiences, and all of those things, is the subconscious. That is where that stuff has to come up through. It is not enough for us to rely on the randomness only of the cards that are being turned. If that was the case, I would have half as many dissatisfied sitters as I would satisfied sitters, don't you think? I could be wrong there, but it makes sense to me. So we pull in another avenue, another channel to bring this through, and to use this language to connect it with the sitter, because it is theirs. It is theirs. So we have to also connect that emotional realm, that storehouse of experiences and interpretations that is always seated in the subconscious. The subconscious is also the place where we plant ideas, whether we realize it or not, that with reinforced and repeated additions will manifest as sort of automatic unconscious behaviors. Most of us suffer because we don't do that in a conscious way, in an obvious way. We allow all the crap to go through. You know what I mean? But that is that filter. That is where we have to connect with in order for this to have any applicability to our lives whatsoever. And we can only get that information, that wisdom out of the subconscious by way of the language that we put in, that we give it to use. And there again, that's one of the other influences of the cards. There it is. So the perhaps unnecessary or excessive shuffling of the cards that I do casino style, it is the one and only thing that I can do that shows the sitter that is my guarantee that I am committed to being a channel and not an influence in this experience. Look, I'm making this as random as I can. You know, I am giving up, I am showing you that I am giving up whatever control I could have had over the outcome of this spread, of this deal, okay? And it is also sort of a comfort to me to have given that up. When I show myself also that this is as random as I can make it in this realm, the information that comes through that is invariably so applicable today, tomorrow, sometimes 6 months from now, because again, Spirit is not going to waste the opportunity. They will shove through as much information as they think we can digest while the channel is open. Okay. So again, that's why we voice record. That's why we take the notes. You will be referring back. It comforts me and helps me to continue to set aside my self-doubt that I was as neutral as a channel as I could possibly be, that with what little structure I have, sitters can see from sitter to sitter, because I do have, they send me families. It's wonderful. But I have to see them a little farther apart. You have to give me time to forget that you're related. Anyway, it helps me show everyone that the integrity of this is not an abstract thing. This is something that I can strive to demonstrate over and over and over again, that what comes up in these cards was meant for you, because guaranteed, the only cards that are ever left with a question mark as to their applicability by the time we end the session, that is almost always future stuff, or it is going to be a memory or a thought that is going to get triggered a little later. Things move so much slower here. We often neglect that there is always time needed for digestion. Okay. So, yeah, it's the one guarantee of honesty, that I can show. And so I do it very vigorously, because I don't want those dirty energy bonds. Nobody's money is so important to me that I would attach negative feelings to my experience with them. That does absolutely nothing for my channel. And it makes me hang on to stuff that absolutely I should not be hanging on to in any way, shape, or form. So break, break, no harm, no foul again. So I hope that gives you some idea of how this works as best as I can explain it from this side of things, from the physical side of the process. It's not all love and light, although I have never encountered any sort of evil energy. And I think that's just because it's one of those things I don't want to know. I know that precautions need to be taken. I know that there are stupid things that practitioners should not be doing. Fucking stop learning your shit from TikTok, for the love of God. Please. But I've never encountered anything that wasn't benevolent and helpful. But that's also what I ask for. Again, like attracts like. This is why a Ouija board is good for nothing but scaring conjuring something that scares the shit out of a room full of teenage girls. What do you think you're going to get with that kind of nonsense? Oh, God. And anyway, it's really not a tool that spirit likes to use to communicate. It's too fucking bulky. Learn to ask your questions through a pendulum. Learn how to read the tarot. It's so much less risky, and much less easy to manipulate. I mean, there is that, right? Anyway, was there anything else that I wanted to include in this rant? Okay, so listen. How does tarot predict the future? It doesn't. Nothing does, because we have free will. I'll say that again. Nothing predicts our future because human beings have free will. It's sort of, I felt really silly when I realized that, because that had been a lot of inner conflict, but you learn how to find the answers to the questions. You really do have to want to know. Anyway, what the tarot does is, if we are asking about future events, and this is where it is very much in our best interest, it always is, but most especially here, to learn how to ask quality questions of whatever language you are using, whatever modality you're using to bring this information through. Again, spirit doesn't waste energy. We need to be as clear and concise as possible. So simple questions, because we can always shuffle again and turn more cards on the same topic. So sometimes it's better to take smaller bites, okay? But we need to ask quality questions so that we are not wasting. Anyway, the tarot shows us a snapshot of future events concerning whatever topic. I have not found anything that we can't get answers on. Again, it's more of an allowing. It's more of an allowing, and sometimes the rules and the structure get in the way of all of that. The dogma exists in the woo-woo community too, okay? So, we try to stay clear of any of those rules that turn out to be, how would Bob Proctor put it? Limiting beliefs. Thank you, Bob. Anyway, this is a snapshot of the future of this event, the answer to this question, which is coming. If we do nothing to change the outcome, if the sitter or if influences remain neutral, meaning if she walks out of here and does absolutely nothing and forgets that she sat with me and has no influence on the situation whatsoever, this is what you're going to get. So what we do with that information is we try to reverse engineer it and look at it in the parts, in the chapters, the scenarios that are illustrated in the tarot as the cards have come up. It shows us the story. It shows, because it shows us the outcome. An outcome, a singular outcome can be shown in one card. And that's well and good, but the goal here is more information and more usability. So let's see the story as well. Let's see what we can see about how it's going to unfold. And again, I am absolutely powerless to do that because it's not my stuff. The sitter needs to lean in here because this is happening for them. Okay. So that is how tarot handles the future. As far as time goes, as far as time is illustrated and predicted in the tarot, I don't find it a very good tool for that, particularly not for me. I can get down to seasonal stuff because I do have representation of that sort of structure in how I read. Some people will do that with numerology because, of course, each card has a number assignment. So there's varying ways. I would rather drill down on timing with the pendulum because that, for me, we can ask sharper questions and really, plot a timeline that goes along with it. It's more concrete for me than this could be this spring, it could be next spring. That's just, sometimes it's just really not enough. So there's something that you have to learn to accept. Excuse me. In order to allow any of this to happen to you, whether you are a reader or someone who wants to read, or whether or not you are a sitter, because again, we all have to be present in this process. We have to set aside our fears and understand, and again, really lean in together and be as candid as we can, because this, as I said, this session is happening for the betterment of all involved. Okay? I become a better person by the ideas and the experiences that you share with me. And I get to turn that outward then to everyone who sits with me afterward as collective wisdom. Because when so many people have sat with you that have had similar situations or have expressed similar ideas, that forms a chain, that forms a pattern, and that is where damn good advice comes from. That is where we cultivate the things that people who sit feel that they needed to hear. All right. So we have to have faith that it is happening for the benefit of all. For those of you who want to know and don't create the obstacle to it, yes, there are cards that can come up that would signify to me that your nearest and dearest, your dearly departed, are using this opportunity, not wasting energy, to make their presence known and to remind you that you are loved and supported and that they never leave us. And if you think that whatever your consternation is that you sat down at the table with today that made you seek this reading, if you think that they would have had good advice on what's going on, well, here's your sign that you can sit down and have a conversation with them anytime you like. Because again, they never leave us. We are only separated by that realm, that realm of benevolent wisdom, the spirit realm, whatever is in it. We are only separated by a nano sliver of consciousness. Okay, that stuff, that world, that universe is literally in our air. It is in the air we breathe. It is just a matter of finding a way that allows you to downshift your brain into a little bit of an altered state of consciousness. And I mean a little bit. The whole like flapping and flailing or dropping, flat on your face in trance. I mean, I don't know. Stop watching that garbage. Everybody watches too much television. If you can learn how to meditate, or at least come to the setting with a practiced, emotionally neutral attitude, that's a good place to start, because you can't get attached. You absolutely cannot get attached, or you'll be a crap channel. You won't be a trusted connection. You'll never find yourself in range. If you can do that, you can allow this. You can absolutely allow this. And chances are, if you become a proficient tarot reader, and again, I recommend that you interpret those cards with your own concepts. I didn't get really the printed meaning of the card is what it means for the person who printed the card, who wrote the book. That doesn't serve spirit, okay? That serves the person who created it. That was their language. Okay, assign your own. Assign your own. It is critical. And that is why your relationship and the depth of the information that comes through with the cards becomes richer and richer as your life experience unfolds, and as you are able to assimilate all of your experiences and bring all of it forth, not just your individual stuff, but the wisdom that has come through the collective. You're pulling now all of that through for everyone who sits. So again, I don't get off saying that this is a huge expansive snowball, but it is. You are rehearing these phrases from me, and you are rehearing these concepts that I have already mentioned, because do you see now how this repetition should show you, even without rewinding, how these things are connected and how there is really no separation, and how each piece of it is so incredibly critical to the quality of the information that comes through. We can't half-ass this. We can't half-ass this. And that is why, that is why the frauds eventually always get caught. That's why the dirtbags are always on the run. They can't set aside their ego because they're in order to allow the channel, because that's not where their motivation is. Your motivation has to be to serve, to make sure that every other party who is in this chain of information has what they need in order for it to come through in the most concise and usable, streamlined format possible. Okay, the most expansive, the most, like I said, they will shove through as much as they can get through, and you have to be ready to handle it. And that is why the frauds are always on the run. Because it is a lie from the start, and ultimately it becomes top heavy, and they cannot give, because again, eventually, referrals are absolutely everything to this realm of practitioners. It is the lifeblood of our business. And frankly, most of us want to work with people who love and care about each other, because that is a tremendous way to strengthen the energy with which this stuff comes through. That love, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. And the care with which that referral was made, the sitter had an experience that they felt so benefited them that they would wish it for someone that they love. That's a very powerful force that just feeds the just staggering process that goes on here. And I can't, it all seems interlocked, and it all seems maybe a little confusing, because it is. It is, but this is the best way that I can illustrate how this works. And like I said, you don't have to be spiritual. So like all of the woo, you can throw that out the window. This is something that everybody has. It's not a learning how. It is an allowing. It is a forgetting. It is a courage of the courage required to let go of what you think you know about how the real world works. Yeah, well, there was a whole other real world, 5 brain wave cycles away from us. And it's a wealth of enriching perspective and ancestral wisdom, and a fountain of things that we, as we stand today, have forgotten. And that energy, those dearly departeds, are pretty desperate for us to remember, are pretty desperate for us to allow to come back into our awareness, because they have a vested interest in what's going on here. They still have loved ones here. They still have blood here. Things aren't going great. Things aren't going great. And that's why more and more of us are learning how to use these tools, or allowing ourselves to use these tools, because I think we've been running out of places to look for help, to look for information. This seems to be working. So we all have personal problems. We do. It's like really sort of why we come here. That's a whole other lecture, right? How long does this thing record? Okay, great. We come here to fuck it up. We come here to experience the contrast. If there is a hell out of all of the things that I've seen and all of the things that I haven't seen, my vote is that it's actually right here. It is right here, and it is the free will choice to suffer. The world, the planet, it is designed to be born, to grow, and to die in all of its layers, in all of its micro realities, all of it. You cannot stop that. Okay, so outside of that, and we should be good stewards of what we have, because it just prolongs and increases the quality of everybody's experience here. And that doesn't mean that there's absolutely no way to incorporate fossil fuels. There are so many people who have gotten rich being able to tell everybody how much there actually is, okay, by, all of those guys that were, remote viewers for the CIA and Project Stargate. They became very wealthy people because of their ability to pull that information from areas that could not be seen. We call it anomalous cognition. They are silent millionaires, okay? They already know. They already know. They insert their narrative in order to control the flow of money. That's all. That's all. And we have far reached beyond a place in our humanity, and really for the most part in our, what would I say? In our humanity and our ethics, our ability to, unlike animals, think far beyond the immediate consequences of our choices. That's what makes our experience here as a whole and as an individual so incredibly exciting. You really do get to choose your adventure, and there are many, many, many choices that can easily be seen down the road. So if that is being made more difficult, you have to ask who's benefiting from that obstacle. What's happening while the roadblock is going on? All right. As above, so below. Like attracts like. So it doesn't matter. Things aren't going great. And this is a way for us to remember remember information and experiences that we had as a collective in times when we were stronger and smarter and so much less concerned about what things look like on the outside only. Shallow people don't get chosen as channels. Sorry. Shallow people don't get chosen as channels because there's just not enough room. They're like literally too full of crap. They're the ones that will plow through a clearly unsuccessful reading because they're afraid that the person who is sitting for them is going to find out that they can't do it. And it's really sad. It's really, really sad. But the thing of it is, the person who wants to be a channel could still be a channel. If you're learning how to read tarot, that means that you are also learning how to access your own subconscious in the beginning. Learn how to use that access for your own betterment. And I guess that's what we would call some shadow work, yeah? Your tarot is going to bring up concepts for you that you should be taking to heart because it is designed in that opportunity that you are asking for to get better, to make you well, to bring these things to your attention. It's hard work, and nobody wants to admit that they went about things the wrong way up until this point in their life, but it is what we come here to do. And the first thing in moving forward in that is apologizing for and fixing the things that you really can fix that really were your fault. Okay? That really were your fault. And not necessarily how somebody else's agitated ego decided to feel about it in the end. I can't wait to continue to have that conversation in society at large. Jesus, God Almighty. Anyway, shallow people can become good channels. But baby cakes, there is a growth process there in front of you and you really have to want it. And that means first and foremost, you want to have to serve spirit and not ego. It's not enough to want to serve the sitter first. No. That is just going to be a session of you spouting personal advice and having a conversation with them. That's not where the first point of connection is. All right? So you can do it, but you have to make that investment in yourself first. You have to make that commitment to serve spirit and learn how to use this language to speak with spirit. And that never happens. It will never come through as the truth if you're ever doing that from a place of fear that you have to pay your bills and so you need the money. That never comes from a place of wanting others to think that you are special or perhaps more than you actually are. Feeling inferior makes people do some pretty, I don't know, just some really weird shit that they think impresses other people. I don't know. But that's there. Well, in a nutshell, that's why the frauds get caught. Your relatively well-adjusted human being is almost always going to pick up on the disconnect sooner rather than later. And those that don't, they're usually called targets. That's what that little black industry there calls. What would we call that? Dark industry of fraudulent. Fortune tellers. That's what you call a mark. That's what you call a target. That is someone who has given you just enough emotional information that you are able to laser in on their fears and for a sum, basically get them to you can do whatever, whatever looks good. This is why we have laws in Pennsylvania, technically against fortune telling. Although the way that it's written, it's illegal to pretend. I know it's weird, but there's been dust-ups over it. We are really only enjoying advertising in public like really, let's only say within the last 25 years. And even so, not really. I think I really had to screw up my courage to put the word tarot on my sign at the shop. Yeah. But I am obligated. I have a sign in the shop that shows, here's the Pennsylvania Commonwealth statute that shows, I have to tell you that for my protection, and yours as well, ultimately, because the state is pretty ruthless, we have to say, no, this is entertainment, and spell items are curios only. Whatever. It isn't for everybody, and I don't know. People mean well, and some people do really stupid things, and still have enough money to push their grievance, through the court system, even though they should have known better. And sometimes, all that influx of money is how we get statutes like that, right? So anyway, that's why the integrity is also so important. People are correcting their trajectories in life and learning how to make better choices by spotting patterns that they didn't see before through the ideas that come through these cards and by proxy out of my mouth. So the benefit for most everyone who has the courage to sit, because again, you got to set aside, what you think and you really have to be candid. Yeah, it is not uncommon for people to come to me with things that they don't even have the courage to say out loud to their therapist. Yeah, because I'm a tarot reader, and that's automatically fringe, and because of that, because I am out there, I've got no room to judge, right? So it's so weird. There's a level of comfort there and a level of candidness there that the therapist sort of intimidates them enough for them to keep it hidden, for them to suppress the courage to ask the question or to approach the topic. So I think therapy is great, and I think it's a very necessary part of our mental health, often as individuals and as collectives. Because when you go to a therapist, they have a set of tools that they can show you and that they can help you use, again, to adjust your trajectory, and get some personal things handled. Super. It is tremendously beneficial. And I do not think that the benefit that comes with those type of sessions and the benefit that can come with these sort of sessions I don't think that they compete. I think they are two sources of wisdom and experience that ultimately can be assimilated for the best in that person's life. Because again, it's just another source of information and tools and experiences. And because they are coming with these same questions, and because we have been able, as far as we are able, to rule out any other influence in the cards, because we can see from person to person, and you'll see from video to video in the weekly outlook that we often see the same cards over and over again throughout the weeks. There's 78 cards, and I have shuffled that deck maybe hundreds of times between videos. So how random can it get? And it really leaves us with, again, that only one answer, that it isn't random, and that information source, that place where we send up our prayers and send up our requests, is responding with the information. I mean, it is what we asked for, right? So they are not mutually exclusive. There is use and applicability and consistent practice and messaging in both fields. So I like it because, again, the tarot, when it is done with purpose, we are including the subconscious. We are including the very seat of the things that the therapist is trying to access in order to help you work through on their end of things with the tools that they have. This is all the same playing field, my dear. We just have different approaches. Okay? That is all the more that you know when it's bullshit. You know when you have a bullshit practitioner, first of all, because they very often only go to the extreme. It's all good and you're paying them because they've told you what they think you want to hear, or it's all bad because they're trying to scare the crap out of you, also in order to get your money. There won't necessarily be a triggering of anything that makes you want to go out and cognitively work on whatever it is your concern was when you sat at the table. It will be very much about the experience only that you are having while you are in that person's presence. So you will know the difference. And eventually enough people have, felt the difference that they're just not getting the clientele anymore, So, and they move on. They move on to riper trees, I suppose. So I hope that puts everything, well, it wasn't really a nutshell, but I think given the amount of information and how incredibly dry my mouth is, this has been a pretty good 1-hour lecture. So thanks for listening and keep tuning in. Again, we've explained very clearly that this is a collective experience. Time and space don't exist. Sorry, this is going to go on a little longer. Time and space don't exist. The CIA knows it too. Everything that is, was, or will, existed, is happening, is already here, and it is only from our perspective that it appears to be transpiring in these cycles and the linear fashion that we perceive. It's all right here. It is all already here. And that is exactly the reason why remote viewers and reputable true channels and true psychics can so readily reach into that area and bring this information forth. It's already here. And they have unlearned any filters to that society has imposed on us with its dogma from all of the usual suspects. Yes? That's why anybody can do it. Setting aside all of that dogma is where that humility and subduing the ego comes in. Right? Right. All my blessings, seekers. It's been a gas.